predictions for next year are still for this upcoming season, are still kind of not too strong for Boston College. Well, there's a few names that I think you should all know about coming up for this season that many national media people are putting on their highest pedestals. We'll get into what that means for the Eagles on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to talk football. We're going to look at basketball, men's and women's, in this Hoag Pavillion and what it could mean for BC and why it's a big deal. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with some fun. We're going to get into some fun here and look at what the biggest sicko moment in BC football history could it be. But let's kick this off with the positives. Now, on Tuesday, there was a lot of, it seemed like the day for national news medias to list their top players for this upcoming season. We saw 247 and ESPN both list their top 100 players. Now, 247, who I work for, only had one Boston College player on their list, and that was Donovan Azaraku, who was, I think, in the 70s for them. Donovan Azaraku is their starting defensive end. He had 8.5 sacks last year, obviously expecting a big year out of him. ESPN, was even more positive about the Eagles, as they had Christian Mahogany at 43 and Donovan Azaraku in the 70s. So you saw two players. And for me, when I see this is the kind of stuff that gets me excited, because especially when you have one guy on offense and one on defense, it to me just like shrieks some sort of balance. You have an elite pass rusher, Donovan Azaraku, who is in the top 100 in the country on both metrics. And you have Christian Mahogany, who was in the top 100 on the other and was in the top 40. That is a great sign, because every BC team for the last 15 years seems to have some sort of Achilles heel, something that has been able to keep them back from getting over that hump. Whether it was the offensive line last year, quarterback the year before, you know the stories, right? Maybe I see things like this and I'm thinking, oh, they finally have it. Because last year, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure Zay Flowers was probably on that list. But there was no one on defense. The fact that you have an offensive lineman this year, I think, is a good sign, right? You want to have that. In addition to just having that, you also have the part that I loved, the Freaks list. If you haven't had a chance to go to The Athletic and read Bruce Feldman's Freaks list, this is fun, because he goes through, it's not just like the best players, because Nichols Harbor, who is a true freshman, was number one. It's not Caleb Williams. It's not, Marvin Harrison Jr. He's in there, but it's the guys that have freak college football ability, and any team make this list of 101 players. And I went into there and I was like, wonder if BC's going to put people in there. Because I've heard from other media members, I've seen people put like, hell yeah, Cam Arnold's a freak athlete. I'm like, yeah, I don't think he's a freak. But I saw a BC player that was not any of the two guys I listed on there. And it wasn't Ryan O'Keefe either, who I thought, if anyone, maybe BC for a freak would have O'Keefe on there, the wide receiver from UCF. Because I thought maybe, he's got really good speed. Maybe they threw him in there. Nope, he's not on there. It was Kyle Hergel. Kyle Hergel, who is a transfer. He's going to be one of the starting guards for this year. Is from Texas State, but also played for North Dakota. And here's what Feldman said for him. And I wanted to read this to you, because folks are not, I think the folks are not understanding what kind of player Hergel is, because he could be something that you could that I think is exciting and really might really put this offensive line to another level. Here's what Feldman said. The Eagles' offensive line was gutted last year by injuries, but it should be pretty nasty in 2023. This powerful Canadian should really help. He was an all Sun Belt third team player for Texas State last year and also Pro Football Focus all Sun Belt first team pick. At 6'2 and a half, 315 pounds, he did and this number just, it makes my mind blown. He did a 756 pound box squat, and could have done more with ease, his coaches say. He bench pressed 478 pounds and could do more than that too. His Nordboard, not Norberg from Naked Gun, production score was 812 N of force, which is 2.5 times his body weight. Anything over 2 is considered excellent. His Hatfield split squat is 445 pounds at 0.87 ms. That is 1.56 his body weight. So all those stats just mean one thing. This dude is freaking strong. This is crazy because you can look at these stats and go, oh, you know what? Maybe other teams didn't want him because he's strong, but he's not a good player. Well, he was a good player at Texas State. He was all Sun Belt. Pro Football Focus put him on their first team. So this guy is coming in with elite strength. Like, I mean, I can't even imagine having that kind of strength that you can bench press that amount of weight. That is exciting. That is something, right? So you got all these guys in this list that are fast and some of them are strong. BC has someone out there that is an athletic freak. And from what I've heard, from some of the things people I've talked to, Hergel is at BC for a couple of reasons. One is he's going to try to get his name out there as a potential draft pick. Going to Boston College, I know last year was rough, but just take out some of the last couple of years. BC has a reputation as being a offensive line university. And if a guy like Hergel can't get into Ohio State or Penn State or Notre Dame, there's no better school to go to than BC. They produce guys like Zion Johnson, Christian Mahogany, Chris Lindstrom. And he has an athletic set that is going to be absolutely filthy. So just think about this. Again, I keep wrapping this around when everyone is doing the woe is me about the offensive line. Oh, they haven't proven it yet. You've got this dude that can can lift almost 800 pounds on one guard. And then you have Christian Mahogany, who's going to be an all ACC, possibly all American at the other guard. How much of an improvement is that going to be over what you had last year? It's crazy. So the national media does pick up some stuff. I've noticed them starting to pick up more and more that there's certain guys on BC that are starting to catch attention. And yes, there are definitely spots. Secondaries a worry. The linebackers a worry. Kicking's a worry. But there's still a lot of optimism about that team. Now, when you look at the freaks list as well, there's a linebacker from Holy Cross that's going to be on there. He's going to be the guy to watch. Holy Cross is a really good quarterback and a really good linebacker. You have, I think it was like 5 or 6 guys from Florida State. Jared Verse, Jordan Travis, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Trey Benson. There's another one I'm missing. The offensive lineman. They've got a ton of talent too. So there's only a couple from other teams though. So, and then there was Pena, I think it's Trejor Pena from Syracuse, who's one of their punt returners. But I thought that was really cool. So 3 different guys getting a lot of like national praise for Boston College. Now in a moment, I want to flip it and reverse it. We're going to go to basketball. And this is not a basketball in general conversation. This isn't specific to men's or women's, but I want to talk about the Hoag Pavillion, which is opening this year. And I'll get into why I want to talk about this when it's kind of an odd time to talk about it, but I'm going to get into what that's all about in just a moment. Now, folks, there's a new sponsor of our show, Nutrafol. Okay. Nutrafol is guaranteed to work for you if you have weakened or thinning hair. I'm sorry, I hate it. I've been taking pictures this summer and early this summer, and I've been noticing it. My hair, like it's not what it used to be. Now, men think losing their hair is inevitable. You can take control of your hair's future with Nutrafol's science-backed hair growth supplement for men. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. I've used it. It is incredible. I am so excited to, show off my hair again. So I want you to take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LockedOnCollege. Again, find out why 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LockedOnCollege. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LockedOnCollege. All right, folks. Locked On BC. Now, as I've said on this podcast, I've been up to BC a couple times, for a bunch of the different practices. I'll be back again on Wednesday for another BC practice. And when you hit BC's campus, first of all, every time I hit campus, it's something that I love. Just to see the buildings and that feel of being back at Boston College is something special. But in terms of the specialness, there's also construction going on. And the construction, if you're parking in the Beacon Street garage, ComAv garage, you can't go around the way you used to around Conti and Alumni because there is the Hoag construction going on. Hoag is the pavilion that's going to be opening, I believe, soon for men's and women's basketball. And I have to tell you, I checked it out. It is absolutely gorgeous. This, folks, it's a game changer. I remember being at BC and seeing the men's basketball. I'd walk through Conti and I see the men's basketball team practicing in that power gym right off of Conti Forum. And that place was embarrassing. It was like a high school gym. I have a picture up, if you're following us up on YouTube, of what the Hoag Pavillion looks like. It has a glass facade on the front that really just showcases everything. You get a full view of this of the beautiful Boston College campus, and there's all the space inside. They have, it's really, really well done. And now, yes, it should have been done about 10, 15 years ago, but it's there and it's going to be opening soon. So this begs the question, how big of a difference is this Hoag Pavillion going to make for basketball recruiting for men's and women's? To be truthful, we haven't seen a ton in terms of men's basketball, in terms of grabbing higher end recruits yet for BC. You've seen BC get a lot of nice players, guys that seem like they're good fits, but they're kind of the same, ilk that Al Skinner grabbed, Jim Christian grabbed. You've got a couple 4-stars that have come in, but none of that has to do with the Pavilion. I have to imagine when these official visits start now, and I'm sure they're probably doing it over this last year, when Earl Grant and his staff can bring kids on campus, or Joanna McNamee can bring her recruits on campus and walk them through this, this is going to be a game changer. This could get BC into conversations with recruits that they haven't been able to get before. And I think this is exciting for BC basketball, because when you're talking recruiting, the thing that there's tons of local recruits, whether you go back to Nerlens Noel or there's kids constantly from this area that are blue chip recruits, and most of them don't end up at Boston College. For every Langford brother or Dennis Clifford you get, there's 3 times as many that just go elsewhere. So you have now a solid recruiting base, solid facility that should help tremendously. And what better time to do it than right now? Because BC, there, of course, there are some really good local recruits that are coming out. So first of all, everyone wants to talk about the big one right now, and believe me, BC has no chance here. I want to say that first and foremost is Cooper Flagg. He's from Maine. He's playing in Maine. He is the number one recruit in the entire country. Number one. And I just wanted to throw him out there because I just want folks to know, and folks have been asking me, no, Boston College has no chance of getting Cooper Flagg. He's looking at like Kentucky and Duke. He's looking at the Blue Bloods. I don't know if they'll get an official visit from it. I would doubt it if they did. But Cooper Flagg is one. But the name that you may want to watch for, and a couple of years of success from BC might be able to help them get there, is DJ Daibansa from Brockton. He is also a 5-star recruit. He is for the class of 2026. He's from Brockton. And he plays, I believe, at one of the local high schools. And I think he plays with Nick Petronio, who is already committed to BC. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get an official visit from him in a year or so. So getting this kind of practice facility, and then on top of that, like I said yesterday, BC Genius of Twitter, who is a writer from one of the Kinetic papers, says NIL is going to really bounce up soon for BC, and there's some really big news coming up, and I still don't know what it is, and it's driving me crazy. If that happens, I'm excited to see where BC recruiting could go, because if they can bump up NIL money, bump up their facilities, maybe they will be able to get some blue chips. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too optimistic about things. It's all Boston College after all, right? Now, in our final segment, I'm going to open up the listeners' responses to a question I put about Sickos, because it's been a comment that a lot of folks have been talking about, and I want to get into what you guys have all brought up in just a moment. All right, this is Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black. Now, if you don't know, the Sickos are a new group of Boston College super fans. It's like basically the new super fans that really live, breathe, and die Boston College sports. There's some great ones on there, and I don't want to even get into the names, but like Martin Artest, who I know that's a username. He's great, and for Blogston, and there's all sorts of other names out there. They're funny. They get into BC sports. And they kind of took the coattails of this whole Sickos movement, which is like this like dark love of bad sports. Like they loved the pain of college sports, the things that are terrible, bad games and like terrible things. Which then I asked the question on Twitter at Locked On BC or X or whatever the heck they're calling it now. And so Sicko games, you could think back to, it was Penn State and Iowa, or Iowa State. Iowa State was a great one, where there was like no offense. It was just punts. That's a Sickos game. Like you're watching it going, this is terrible, but I still can't turn away from it. That's being a sicko, right? So I asked, what is the most sicko Boston College game you've ever watched? And I already gave my answer. If you're on YouTube, you can see the picture of what I picked, which is Steve Adazio losing 3-0 to Wake Forest. I've already told my story about going to that game where BC gave up the ball with like 3 minutes left, and I was like, this game's over. And then I ditched my wife and went back in, and she wanted to kill me because I left her outside without a ticket. And then I got my comeuppance for watching the end of that terrible game. Well, other folks agreed with me on that one. Rome Cold Bucks Sicko, again, said, I took a group out of town friends to the Wake game. They had no affiliation with Boston College, and you bet we stayed to the very end. Most authentic BC experience I could have given them. That game was awful. Like, it was totally a sicko game because there was nothing going on that was positive about it. And then we had Pretty not pretty Sicko said Wake 0-3 is the only possible answer. We had the most inept offense in the history of football. Lost the game about 4 times in the last 10 minutes, but weren't satisfied that they had found the absolute worst way to lose. Daz nailed it. Remember, that was the game that they lost. They were at the 3-inch line and they couldn't get the ball snapped. Perfectly Sicko right there, right? Mr. Pierre Lewis says, this one hands down. I sat in the dark and stared for 10 minutes. I was stuck in a game, so I couldn't get away from staring in the dark. I felt like I needed to, though. Big Skip said, easily Wake. There were about 20 of us left in the stadium. The defense ran off without doing the alma mater. Truly a Sicko moment. I didn't know that part, that they didn't do the alma mater. But there were other people who had other responses, and I thought some of these were really good as well. Boston College football fan says, this doesn't count because we won the game, but me and my dad were literally the only 2 people left by the 4th quarter of the 2016 Buffalo game. It was downpouring and we were just moved to the 50-yard line, sat down and watched to the end completely soaked in an empty stadium. I remember that game too. I was there and I was just like praying that my cell phone was going to crash because it was pouring so bad. And yes, sitting through a bad football game in it was like a monsoon during that game. That's Sicko moments right there. Elijah Lopez says Birmingham Bowl. We got rained on for hours through the delay just to watch the Eagles get demolished. That was the game against Cincinnati. Getting to watch not even Steve Adazio, that was Richie Gannell, who will be coaching against BC for Holy Cross. That was an awful game. Definitely a Sicko's moment. And then Adam Rose definitely had the last one. He said September 17th, 2016 in Blacksburg after a 4+ hour drive, 49-0. Stayed for the whole thing, went hiking the next day and almost jumped. Yeah. There's definitely been moments with BC football where you feel pretty down. I never got to that point, but yeah. Being a Boston College fan, there's Sicko moments all the time. You could have even, I don't know if anyone, I was surprised no one put UConn down from last year because that was a Sicko's game. Rutgers was a Sicko's game too because of that whole end of that last drive was, oh my God. And then, all the mistakes they were making. Just saying, sometimes you can get into we talk about the positive moments, but sometimes you can look at the negative moments and you can still get a good chuckle out of them too, right? You can still laugh and think about it and think of all the silliness of it because it's just sports after all, right? Well, I'll be back tomorrow for another episode. I will be at practice. I will hopefully get some new updates and we'll see if we have any new anything injury related that we need to talk about. I will ask the coaching staff, see if we can get some interesting updates on that. We'll get into all that on tomorrow's show. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Threads. Follow me on Eagle Insider. I hope to see you all around. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I enjoyed talking to each and every one of you. Take care, everyone.